if someone, say, ends up in debt because of a catastrophic event and they need to take on some debt for caregiving, why carry the additional shame around money when they're just working on keeping their family member alive? That debt has significant value. I don't want people to feel like they have all of these swirling feelings around negativity if it's truly aligned with their values and their goals and their vision. So the most important thing is understanding your why for your money.
Did you know that in 2020, there were 53 million caregivers in the United States? And by 2025, this number is expected to grow to 62.5 million. 73% of these caregivers also have a job. They are called working caregivers, and they are invisible because they don't talk about their caregiving challenges. Working Caregivers, the Invisible Employees, is a podcast that will show you how to support working caregivers. Join Selma Archer and Zach Demopoulos on the Working Caregivers, the Invisible Employees podcast as they show you how to support working caregivers.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining the Working Caregivers, the Invisible Employee podcast. My name is Zach Demopoulos.
I'm Selma Archer.
Hey, hello, Selma Archer. How you doing today?
I'm great, Zach. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I can't wait to talk to our guest that you've brought to us, Selma. So please, let's bring her on.
We are so excited to welcome our guest today, Dr. Billina Shaw. Hello, Dr. Billina.
Hello, Selma and Zach. So great to be here.
Well, we are excited because you have such a wealth of information to share with our audience today. So we'll just plow right into it. You are a medical doctor as well as a psychiatrist. So you are the perfect person for us to speak with in terms of both the mental toll and the physical toll that caregiving has on an individual. What do you see as some of the most challenging health concerns that are facing caregivers and working adults today?
Sure. So, thanks so much for this question, and thanks for having me. As a psychiatrist, as now a coach as well, I think that there are so many important things to discuss in this topic. One of which is just in general caregiver health and mental health. So, I'll start with a story. As a psychiatry is a specialty in medicine, and we learn, we go through all the regular medical training, just like everyone else. I've delivered babies and scrubbed into surgeries. And then at the end of the day, I decided that I wanted to focus on learning how to help people with their mental health. Mental health can impact our physical health so frequently. Like our neck is not just, a random little appendage. Like our whole body is connected, right?
Yeah.
And so, my grandmother actually was a caregiver. My grandmother was much younger than my grandfather. However, she ended up passing away before him. The primary reason that I strongly believe is because of the physical toll of the caregiving. Mm-hmm. My grandmother was at least 10 years younger than my grandfather, and she ended up passing away from an aortic aneurysm that ruptured.
Wow.
I just think about just the physical toll, and obviously that is a medical condition that, is not specific to caregiving, but the high blood pressure, the stress, it's a lot on anyone's brain and body. And so the first thing is, first message for anyone and for anyone who's caregiving is that self-care isn't a negotiable. It's not an option. And it's oftentimes people feel like caregiving is really a calling. It is part of their familial responsibility, but we are our own responsibilities too. And just to remember that, because at the end of the day, you can't pour from an empty cup, and you have to be here to be able to provide that care. And so figuring out that balance and striking that balance is so important.
I just wondered, in your work, how often have you had to have that conversation with caregivers? Like, is that something that you see recurring, more often than not. Because I know I struggle with the same issue of stopping taking care of me so that I have the energy to take care of those around me.
I mean, there's a reason why when we're flying that they say to put that mask on first. It's
Yes.
very common to try to not to. And for many reasons, including that our sense of identity is often tied up into the caregiving. Our identity as a
Yes.
family member, a daughter, son, our identity as just somebody who loves, and this is how we feel that our expression of love is coming through. And so it can almost feel like we're sacrificing or pulling away from that person or not loving that person, but realizing that loving ourselves really
Yeah.
helps to love that person in a different way.
Yeah. Dr. Billina, I love that you shared about your grandmother. I want to share with you that I ran a home care business for 13 years. And there were a number of cases where, and it usually was a woman who would hire us, and she would pass before her husband. And they were younger than her husband or spouse. And it was tragic. I mean, how do you mind sharing a little bit more about what happened when your grandmother passed away before your grandfather? How does the family bounce back from something like that?
We as a family have started a new tradition. So my grandmother passed away a couple days before, shortly before Christmas. And, just around, obviously holidays, there are, gathering moments, but and oftentimes a source of grief because of the memories of the family members that aren't with us. One significant thing that I have learned in my psychiatric training around grief and loss is to understand how to use rituals and creating new rituals sometimes. So we actually created a ritual around my grandmother's loss of cooking spaghetti. Because that year, for Christmas, you often have a big dinner. And we just had that big dinner at Thanksgiving. And the family looked around each other and said, does anyone feel like cooking a real big dinner? And we're like, no. And so we actually, from then on, just started cooking spaghetti. Maybe we get fancy and do lasagna or something, but in our honor. But the important part of that story is that it's a reminder and a familial reminder that togetherness is more important than the old ritual routine, and that the work or the labor of the quote unquote fancier meal, that labor is not necessary for community and for family.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Also in our home care experience weeks, we normally would get a phone call from somebody where it's almost too late. So they should have asked for help earlier, right? So, and Selma and I see this all the time where caregivers don't ask for help. In your experience, why do you think that is?
I think there's a lot of reasons why people don't ask for help. I feel like there's a cultural element to it. There's this cultural piece that says that I am expected in my cultural role as a fill in the blank, whatever that role is, a spouse, child, whoever that is that I am expected to provide care in a way that is perceived, but there's no specific rule, but there's just this understood expectation. I also think that our society has been so hustle, quote unquote, independent, all these things that say that I'm supposed to do it on my own, that there is a sense of failure or inadequacy if we say that we actually need help. I also think that at the end of the day, it's just we have created this concept of needing to be superhuman, and that there's almost sometimes a separation of the humanity and the emotional element of caregiving versus the physical elements of caregiving. And being able to stop and say that I'm still able to be a caregiver and I'm giving care without bleeding myself, literally in my grandmother's case, really, right? Like, but bleeding myself out, and that you can still give emotionally without draining yourself physically. and really just starting to understand that.
Yeah, those are great points. Thanks for sharing.
So as we talked about before, Dr. Billina, our audience includes employees, employers, caregivers themselves. How do you see mental health impacting workplace performance, relationships, and overall well-being?
So, as a child psychiatrist, there's this little cartoon that I've often seen where kids are supposed to go into school and they're supposed to learn and figure out everything they need to be a functioning adult when they're carrying the baggage of anxiety, depression, food insecurity, housing insecurity, all of these other mental bags
Mm.
and baggages. And we're expecting kids to grow and learn that way, which obviously is not realistic.
Mm.
And I believe it's the same with employers, that employers are expecting people to come in and be these robots. And we just talked about these robots and this physical, emotional, there's a physical being that just goes without the emotional connection. But at the end of the day, people, because where the workforce is made of people, that those people are going to feel drained and not able to be as creative and complete things and distractible and concerned and thinking about what are they need to be doing at home and just not able to focus. And I just think about even just the concentration symptom in my field. A lot of times people will say, oh, I must have ADHD because I can't focus. But concentration is a symptom of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, depression, anxiety. There are so many different things that a lack of concentration can come from. And so just thinking about just that one symptom alone, concentration, which is what we all need to have at work to do our job,
Yeah.
and just how that can pull people away. And so when you think about just all the other the emotional pulls and drains, the physical time, the things that are related to caregiving, the coordination of the vendor supplies, appointments, those people work 9 to 5. So slipping in that call, slipping in that coordination, being a whole logistics manager, project manager, while you're possibly being a project manager at work, like it's really not quite feasible to do both well. And giving people grace to be able to have that time and understanding can be so important.
I really like that analogy that you started out with the classroom. And that's so true. My husband's educator was in the classroom for many, many years. And he told me a lot of stories about, children coming in, they're not responsive to, the work. They're totally disconnected. And he said many times he would ask them, did you have breakfast today? And most often it would be, no, there was no breakfast. We didn't have money for breakfast. So he'd have to, make sure they had a meal before they could start taking in the classroom day. So that is just so true. And I never put the two together like you just did with the workplace and, being able to have all those things satisfied so that you can do the best job possible that day. So that's a great analogy. I really like that.
Thank you. I mean, you just think about it, that's physical fuel, but you think about the emotional fuel as well as the physical fuel together.
Yes,
But how are we supposed to be running anything without any fuel?
exactly.
Yeah, Selma and I rarely have conversations with guests where we don't talk about all 4 impacts of caregiving. And you've covered 3 of them pretty well: physical, mental, and emotional. But look at you, you're also doing financial. So, I mean, you're like amazing. Do you do anything besides study? I'm just curious. I mean, amazing. But financial is also very critical. And so can you share a couple things? One, what do you feel is the financial impact of caregiving on mental health? And 2, tell us about what you've created, your company, the Freely Flourish Financial. Love to know how you came up with that name, what you can do for your clients, specifically working caregivers.
A lot of times finances seem to be in this whole other silo, this whole other bucket that's independent of mental health. And I
Mm-hmm.
started to realize, I'll just share another story is that I actually was a federal employee and I ended up losing my job. And I became very anxious because I'm thinking, well, where's this money coming from? How am I going to pay my bills? But I also had started to prepare myself, and this is actually, a mention of caregivers because it's also important to think about that preparation too. But I had started to prepare myself for the potential of said job loss. And I had a consulting company and a consulting contract that was able to pay my mortgage for a year. And I was still anxious though.
Mm.
And I started to realize that this isn't just about the numbers. This is about the meaning. This is about what my perceived securities is about my relationship with money.
Mm.
And I started to realize that mental health and money have this bi-directional impact. I'd always try to help people with budgets and things and realize that didn't work if I just looked at the money, just looked at the numbers, but had to look at what's underlying that and the meaning. And so mental health and money or wellness and financial wellness is really just a part of wellness. There's something called 8 dimensions of wellness. It's a very popular framework for how to consider wellness. And actually one of them, you mentioned several of them already, but one of them is financial. I wasn't trained really to think about that other than maybe case management and referring people off. But just that feeling around money and the conceptualization of wellness
Mm.
is so important. And when you think about caregiving, it can be a direct possible threat to finances and often is. I have family members who have lost homes because of caregiving, because of the inability to work and things of that nature. So especially if you don't have a significant nest egg, we all know that long-term care is so expensive and nursing homes and other skilled facilities are very expensive and the insurance structure and infrastructure doesn't often pay for that, or to put someone in a setting where your loved one in a setting where you feel that the quality is of that is of the similar quality as what you would like to provide.
Yes.
Also, there
Mm.
needs to often be financial resources. I think about also sometimes the guilt and the shame if someone's unable to care for someone like they would like to in the home and they need to have support and that support maybe isn't the same quality. There can often be guilt and shame and on all of these feelings around money. So to summarize, where is it? There's the financial drain that can happen with caregiving. And then there's also the guilt and shame if someone doesn't have all the resources that they would like to have around caregiving. And the work that I do helps people understand that even if they don't have everything that they want at the moment, that they have the ability to still thrive and grow. And that I like to say that I try to see money as a puzzle and not a problem. How do we get to the answer and how do we find the answer? And sometimes when you're in the middle of doing a puzzle, sometimes it's just frustrating, right? Oh, is this supposed to go
Mhm.
here? No, it doesn't go there. And sometimes you just put it down and you make a mistake. But then you pick it back up, you put it down somewhere else, and you keep working until you find it. And eventually it's very fulfilling when that puzzle is put together.
Mm.
And so I like to say the same with money, but especially as a caregiver, that it is important to think about how do you start shaping those puzzle pieces in advance? How do you start understanding what kinds of future needs there may be? I have actually purchased a home that has more space than I need in case I need to support family.
Mm.
I've purchased a home thinking about the possibility and future of caregiving as being an only child. I also think about the importance of starting to create some type of nest egg that's outside of traditional retirements and other accounts, but also looking at lower energy opportunities to make money so that there can be that flexibility. So that if someone does have a need and they're far away, you can hop on a plane or something like that. And it's not,
Yeah.
well, where's that money coming from? Maybe it's money and maybe it's points. I'm a points gal, right? But like how do you get your way somewhere? But just having that stash for yourself and for those around you. So a lot of the work that I do is not only that mindset and work, but helping people understand what their steps are to take action so that when people act with that authority, that their brain and their mindset says that I'm okay financially, that I'm doing the best that I can, I'm growing, that I'm getting to where I want to be, that I have financial goals that I'm growing in, and that even if I'm still a little stuck here or there, I'm just putting down that next puzzle piece, and I'll keep mixing it up and shaping around and turning it until I get to the spot I need to be.
Yeah, and I've been enjoying your LinkedIn posts, and we're going to encourage everybody to connect with Dr. Billina on LinkedIn, and we'll put that link in the show notes because we know some of you right now are working out or jogging, so we're not going to have you do that, but we'll put the link in the post. But I love you. I think it was you did it today, and you talked about don't ask people like where are you going. I'm sorry, where's your money going? Ask where you're going there. Or why are you building this for this? Financial literacy is something that could be perceived as a great benefit to support caregivers, right? So just here's a question for you based on your services that you're providing with your company. If you had a room full of caregivers right now, students, what would be the best piece of advice you'd be giving them or question you should give them as far as their caregiver journey that they're about to get on or they're on?
Identify your why and your goals. So often financial literacy is so focused on getting out of debt and just making your way to, getting over that credit card hurdle. And it's important to not spend excessively and live in a way that I think supports your life. Within your means, I feel like can have a pejorative perspective because it's really what someone values, and you're really I promote spending within your values. I don't necessarily say that there's one way to say get out of debt. I also feel that if someone ends up in debt because of a catastrophic event and they need to take on some debt for caregiving, why carry the additional shame around money when they're just working on keeping their family member alive? That debt has significant value.
Yes.
And I don't want people to feel like they have all of these swirling feelings around negativity when sometimes it's really if it's truly aligned with their values and their goals and their vision. So the most important thing is understanding your why for your money. So many times we just focus on getting out of debt, but if there's no why, there's no purpose, there's no vision, then first of all, it will likely not happen. And second of all, just to be clear, I mean, when you get out of debt and you have no assets, your net worth is zero. Zero is not a very fun number, right? Like, I mean, so, I think that it's really important to understand what are you moving towards and why. And so if it is so that you have that nest egg and support so that you can be free and move around when you're able to provide that caregiving, that's the liberty of the life that you're living for in the future. And then that's what motivates you to save. Also, the fact that if someone doesn't have that now, it's not too late to change, and that there isn't a good or a bad with money. I think of a client that I helped who was in a significant growth process and actually didn't have the money to bury a family member. First of all, the fact that they felt like that was their sole responsibility is a whole nother thing. We just basically talked about that, but didn't have the money to bury that family member. And because they didn't, and they had debt at that time, after that moment, they made a significant shift and change in their finances. But because of that one moment in their time, in their history, in their life, they still felt that they were bad with money, even when they actually had the emergency fund. They had all of the things that they needed, but they still were just stuck in that past. And so the work that I do helps people to grow and to move towards understanding their goals, creating the vision, moving towards it, but also getting rid of those past hurdles, because caregiving is enough. Living in this world is hard enough, as opposed to carrying all of these other burdens with us.
Thank you so much.
Wow. Yes. In addition to all of these wonderful financial insights that you've shared, because Rosalind Carter has told us that everybody is going to be impacted by caregiving in some form or fashion. You're going to be one. You've just been one. You are going to need one. What would you say to our audience, in addition to all of the financial wellness tips that you've shared with us to walk away with from this conversation today? One or two things.
The first thing is caring for yourself is not negotiable. It may shift in different times and seasons, and it might in the way it happens or the amount of time it happens may be different, but still prioritizing it in some way, shape, or form is just so important. Because not only does it help you in that caregiving journey, but for some people, they just might need to realize and remember that it could help them from being that one that needs the care.
Yeah.
I've talked to so many women in the last couple of months who have said, my husband has had a stroke. In the last 3-4 months, my husband has had a stroke. Just thinking about how we can actually make sure that we are not the one needing the care. We have to invest in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the first thing. And that also going through a period of healing and growth doesn't mean that you are not strong. Just because you take that time away doesn't take anything away from who you are as a person, doesn't take anything away from who your identity is in that role that causes you to feel led to caregive, but that you're still strong when you take that pause.
Great.
So many mic drops. I mean, I can't keep up with them. I mean, but no shame in debt. What you said earlier, I don't think anyone has ever said that on our show. And that makes so much sense when it comes to being a caregiver. Of course, caring for yourself is non-negotiable. We have heard that before, but for some reason coming from you, I'm listening. I was like, I'm listening. Thank you so much. You've been just really amazing. And you've also brought a whole new meaning to spaghetti dinners, which I absolutely just love that story. I really do. How can people find out more about you and connect with you and learn more about your services?
Sure. Well, the easiest way is you just text GROW, like Freely Flourish, GROW. I just talked a lot about growth, to 55444. That's GROW to 55444. And you can follow along with, and you can join my emails and text, and we can grow together. And then also, like you mentioned, I have a LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there, as well as some other socials. Not quite as active on those. I'm getting there. But freelyflourishfinancial.com is my website as well.
Great. Well, thank you so very much. You have helped me to open my eyes myself, especially with that self-care. I've been struggling with that lately. So non-negotiable. I know what that means, non-negotiable. So
I would suggest that for everyone, identify that one item that they want to think about incorporating into their life around self-care. Identify that one item, text a friend and say, I'm doing it, and text a friend for some accountability.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us and for sharing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Billina. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to catch new episodes of Working Caregivers, the Invisible Employees podcast, every other Tuesday. Please also visit our website, invisibleemployeeadvocates.com, to subscribe to our newsletter, purchase our book, and learn more about how we can help you strengthen your workplace to become more supportive of working caregivers.